You're listening to Winnipeg's Classic 107. My name is Simon Resnack. February is I Love to Read Month, and to celebrate reading, as we do every first Friday of the month on Morning Light, we welcome Chris Hall of McNally Robinson Booksellers with a What to Read feature. Hello, Chris.
Hello, Simon.
Happy I Love to Read Month.
Thank you, and same to you. This is a great month for us.
I am sure it is. And speaking of great months, before we get chatting about this month's picks, I do want to ask you about the loosened restrictions here in Manitoba. The essential
Mm.
items list has been removed. You were once again allowed to reopen your doors. What have the past few weeks been like at McNally?
Well, on the side of doing what we love to do, which is book selling, it's been what a relief. We just couldn't do what we wanted to do over the phone or online, and having people come into the store is the way we can work the best. And yeah, it's been a great relief for that. We felt safe, and it's a big space, so we don't feel overwhelmed by numbers. So yeah, it's been good. It's been very good. Very pleased to have normal back to that extent, at least.
What have you been hearing from customers?
Customers are very glad to come back. They were equally frustrated trying to work with us, wanted to work with us. We felt their love, but from the outside, now they can come in, and yeah, we're being very um, well treated by people who've missed us. We've missed it. People, it's nice to go back and out into the store, and there's people around.
It's true. Actually, McNally has been one of my very few stops out of the house. And as you were saying earlier, I mean, it is a big store. There's a hand sanitizer in place. Masks are of
Yeah,
course mandatory. But I
yeah,
have to say, I did miss the experience of browsing for a book. I mean, there's something to be
yeah,
said for being able to order it online or talk to you over the phone. But to
yeah.
go into the store and see the titles there, it is a totally different experience. And I think I went in for one book and I walked out with three because that's just the nature of browsing, isn't it?
It absolutely is. It's that element of discovery that it's very difficult to replicate online. And so when you come in, you're absolutely right. A book that you had no idea you were interested in, just the way it's there, and it's maybe beside other books you like, and so, but you hadn't spotted this, particular angle or something that interests you. Yeah, it's there's something mysterious. I call it magical. There's something magical about it.
It really, really is. So, speaking of discovery, you've got some new titles for us to discover this month at McNally.
Mhm.
Where would you like to start?
I'm going to start with a book called Under a White Sky. It's by Elizabeth Kolbert. Elizabeth Kolbert is the winner of the Pulitzer Prize for a book called The Sixth Extinction. She contributes regularly to The New Yorker, very good writer. And she asks in this book, after doing so much damage, can we change nature, this time to save it? So she explores a number of examples, mostly in the US, but Australia and other places too, where we have a history of changing nature. We clear forests, we dam rivers, we reclaim land from the sea. And many of these changes have resulted in unintended consequences. And now we're dealing with those consequences. So we're at the second level of a changing nature that we prompted. And so it's a very interesting exploration of, can we ultimately, can we change nature so that we can tackle things like climate change? Can we shoot diamonds into the stratosphere to cool the earth? Like, there are
Wow.
some ideas out there, but will they work? And what will be the unintended consequences? It's a very fascinating book. She's a great guide.
Yeah, it really sounds like it, and I think we're going to come back to climate change with a pick a little bit later. But speaking of examination and especially self-examination and the world in which we live, the next book that I think you have queued up, the latest by professor, anti-racist activist, and historian and race discrimination, Ibram Kendi. Can you tell us a little bit about him and this latest offering of his?
Yeah, well, Ibram Kendi, I got a chance to meet him at a book event. Well,
Wow.
not meet him, but listen to him in person. What a brilliant fellow!
Hmm.
And he wrote a book called "How to Be Anti-Racist," as you said, and so he became one of the leading voices speaking on behalf of the Black Lives Matter protests last year. That book became a pivotal centerpiece of our
Hmm.
displays of the books that were being recommended that people read. In this case, he's not a new book of his writing. It's he's an editor in this, and he's got a co-editor, Keisha and Blaine, who's helped him with this. They've called this book 400 Souls, and what they've done is they've brought together a community, 80 Black writers, current writers, as well as 10 poets, and each of these 80 writers take an episode or a um, a time span anyway, something pivotal that's happened within a 5-year time span. And if you do the math, then that covers the 400-year history of African Americans in the United States. And it's a very effective way of reading history. It's very anecdotal, but at the same time, some of the hooks are like pieces of legislation, acts of atrocity, decisions basically that have been made, actions that have been taken, and it really leads you to an understanding of why the world is the way it is, why the protests happened last year. It's gives you a real historical context in a very effective way. Very short snippets, so it's not heavy history reading. I really recommend it. I think this year's Black History Month has a new resonance for us here, but over the world as a whole as well. I think it behooves us to explore a little bit more of that history, and I couldn't make a better recommendation than this book start thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's exactly what I wanted to say is that, of course, February is I Love to Read Month, but also Black History Month, and as
Yeah,
you say, re-examining Black History Month after last year, and you know what we saw with the Black Lives Matter protests and the calls for social and criminal justice reforms, and this really sounds almost like an encyclopedia sort of compendium, but giving you these little snippets of moments of
yeah.
time. So, what a great place to start, and to carry you through those 400 years. It most certainly sounds like a powerful read.
It's a very powerful read. Yeah, very powerful. Yeah.
So earlier we were talking a little bit about climate change and what can be done, what is possible. When I think of this next fellow, I think of computer science, not climate science. Tell
Yeah.
us about this one.
Yes, this is a book called How to Avoid a Climate Disaster, and it's by a fellow named Bill Gates.
Yeah, never heard of him. Yeah.
Indeed, yes. I was going to suggest he needed no introduction, but he the subtitle is "The Solutions We Have and the Breakthroughs We Need." So he's Bill Gates has become a kind of um, all-knowing expert. Like he's said a lot about COVID. He knows a lot about COVID. So you could be skeptical, I guess, but he is a very smart guy, particularly in technology, as you suggest. But he also has access to the world's experts. And so that's what he's really tapped into here. He's combining tech with physics and chemistry and biology, engineering, political science, and finance. And he's brought all that together um, to introduce at least a potential plan to get to zero emissions. And I think, as much as anything, this is a book to read. It would be very thought provoking. I haven't seen it, I should say, because it's
Hmm.
so heavily embargoed. They haven't shown me anything except the description. So I'm working from that, a bit like the Barack Obama book before Christmas.
Hmm.
But I mean, this is a statement book, right? It's when somebody of the stature of Bill Gates makes a statement like this, alongside the President of the United States recently, that really sends a signal to the world, to the markets, to everyone that hey, this is serious and we got to get going. I mean, this is the context within which General Motors can announce that they're going to get to all electric vehicles in 15 years, 2035. A company like that can't do that unless this is being talked about by the major people in the world. So I think it's going to be a very interesting read. But on top of that, it's going to be a thing to get people talking and treating this seriously.
Yeah, all about starting that conversation and then making sure that conversation is going. So we've been dealing a lot with fact, and I
Yes.
think we're going to make a move towards fiction now, right?
Yes, yes, I like to lighten the mood upon departure. Fiction for me is always it's a bit of an escape, but also, um, can also be interesting in the ways nonfiction can be. But anyway, this is a new book by a woman named Amanda Leduc, a Canadian author. She has written this novel called The Centaur's Wife. And Amanda wrote a book previously called Disfigured, subtitle On Fairy Tales, Disability, and Making Space. And that was how fairy tales and stories we tell ourselves, what effect they have on the world. We tend to value our beauty over our beast, for example. And what does that tell people who don't have beauty necessarily or aren't the normal definition of beauty? And so she explored that in there. And this new book, she does something along the same lines. She's fascinated by fairy tales, clearly, and does a very interesting job here of interweaving fairy tales and a more realistic story of a catastrophe that hits the earth and threatens humanity. But while the humans struggle, the natural world thrives. the plants start taking over the city again. And another example is a group of centaurs suddenly find the courage to reappear. They've been in hiding all this time, and so it's got some fun to it. It's got some seriousness to it. She really does a very, very interesting job of using fairy tales and the genre of fairy tales to interweave with this story. I was quite struck by it, actually.
Huh, sounds great. And
Mhm.
I think you've got one more pick, right?
I do, yes. Another novel. This one is called The Mission House. It's by Karis Davies. Karis Davies wrote a book, a previous book that I was kind of taken by called West. It was about a farmer in the 1800s U.S. who heads west because he's heard that dinosaurs are still exploring the world. So he thinks he's going to
Centaurs,
discover.
dinosaurs,
I know.
they're all still
That
around. Yeah.
says something about me, right? These are the things that appeal to me. Well, this new novel is about Hilary Bird. He's a contemporary British man. He lacks the courage to take on the world, and the only thing he can think to do is to get away. And so he ends up in a British hill station in South India. And somehow a world that's familiar and unfamiliar, he finds some people that need his help, and he starts to find himself. I was really taken by this novel. It's very quiet. I didn't think there was much going on until I realized, holy, there's a lot going on in here. And it really came together in the end in a satisfying way. I'd really recommend this. And I don't want to give too much away, but Winnipeg makes a cameo appearance. So
No way. It's always
yeah,
special when that happens, when you
I
can go,
know.
hey, I know
Whoa.
that place. I know that place.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, I want to thank you as always for these
Yeah.
suggestions. You can find them up at McNally Robinson, in store once again,
Mhm.
and also online, mcnallyrobinson.com. We've also got the picks up at classic107.com.